It's here. It is here. It is here. Oh, this puts me into a good mood. Haven't not been in much of a great mood lately for all of you of my 50-ish subscribers out there. Many of you know I had to move very suddenly. Life got very stressful. And I hate to say it, but one of the things that's been adding to my stress, the Insta360 One X. Before I get into this, I want to point out and be very honest that this is the last video that I ever wanted to make about this camera. It has been breaking my heart, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let's get into this. Yes! Ah, man. Finally, welcome to the new Skojo Insta360 studio. Been waiting on that poster to close it off. As I said, I've been moving, and you know, having Master Yoda in here just makes me feel a little bit more peaceful. So I decided, well, the Empire Strikes Back Yoda. The Yodas that were in the CG with the Muppet voices and all that stuff kind of got obnoxious. But I can say that the Dagobah Yoda, he kicked ass. But I digress. Now, see, I launched this channel before I'd even received this thing because the reviews were so good that I was like, I'm going to do a 360 channel. I ordered the camera, waited for a month before it arrived. So by the time it arrived, I'd already booked some interviews, some trips. I was hitting the ground full speed when this thing arrived. And that is when everything came to a screeching halt. This little camera has become like an albatross around my neck. I have chewed my fingernails to the nub over this last month, and I've got a laundry list of reasons why, if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would not buy the Insta360 One X. Now, before we get into why I wouldn't buy it, why don't we talk a little bit about why you may actually want to buy it. I'm a professional video producer, so my standards are a little bit different. What you want may not be what I want, and vice versa. So let's talk a little bit about why you might actually want to buy this camera. The video on this camera actually looks pretty darn good, and you've got multiple different selections. You've got your 5.7K that looks very, very solid at 30 frames per second. The 4K at 30 frames per second holds up pretty good. It's not quite as good, but you also get 4K 50 frames per second, which makes for that really cool, everything looks cool in slow motion B-roll. So it's a really good looking camera right out of the box. I do color everything before I release it, but for the most part, you just kind of touch a few things up and this thing's good to go. Second, this thing has a display. Yeah, not very many 360 cameras have displays, so it's nice that you're not just stuck having to use the app. Now, the app and the display aren't just pros, they're also cons, but we'll get into that in just a second. Third, the design on this thing is pretty good. It's not very heavy. It's of solid plastic construction. It feels pretty good in the hand. And at number 4, yeah, it has a removable battery. Now that's a major bonus for a lot of these things because it opens up the chance to then record a lot longer. Now the batteries are also a con, but again, we're in the pro section now, so let's move on to the next one. Next up, the accessories that they offer for this thing are actually pretty neat. They've got a snow bundle, a climbing bundle, a mountain biking bundle, a bundle for just about anything you want to do. The problem is that while the accessories that they offer are a pro, what they actually get out is a bit of a con, but we're on the pro list, so let's stick with it. On to the next pro. Rumor has it that the app for the Insta360 One X is actually pretty good, but just like all the other pros that I brought up, it also has a con, one that affected me quite a bit. So, sorry, that's the last of the pros. Let's go on to... So unfortunately, yes, we do have to talk about why you should not buy the Insta360 One X. The bottom line is it just feels like they skipped the beta testing altogether. Lots of grade school errors that I've been getting with this thing for the last month. It just feels like maybe they rushed it out to get it out in time for Christmas, make a bunch of money, cash in, onward and upward. But to be perfectly blunt, if you want to push this camera in any way, shape, or form, it will piss you off. It will make you question your sanity. So we better take a look at the cons now. Sorry, Insta360 One X, I don't want to make this video. The number one reason is the audio. Now, I've had some people who are not having the same audio problems that I have that say that the audio's decent, you just don't want to get any wind around you or it'll just destroy it. But on this camera, I'm having the worst audio issues I've ever had in my life. I mean, I got stuck basically having to use this just purely to pick up reference audio, and I was gonna have to wear a lav mic when I go out into the woods on my skis. But even when I would get back and dump the reference audio into my Premiere, take the lav stuff and try to sync it up, the crackling sounds were so loud that I couldn't even tell what I was saying to be able to sync up with the stuff I'd recorded into the lav mic. That is a first grade error, with all due respect to first graders. Next up on my list of headaches is the battery. Now, if you remember, I said this was a pro, and the fact that it had a detachable battery, that makes it great. The problem is, as of December 2018, you can't buy extra batteries, so having this is almost worthless. Every once in a while, you'll see them come up for sale, and they instantly sell out, so be prepared. You're gonna get one battery life out of this, and it gets worse. I take this thing out in the snow. And yeah, it gets below 32 degrees, which they say it's rated for, and it dies within 5 minutes. Now, I wrote the company about this, and they said, oh, just, you know, when you're going out into the cold, keep it in your hands or whatever, keep it in your pocket, and then use it, you know, when you actually need it. Well, anybody that knows an action camera knows you can't just be stuffing stuff down into your jacket. You need to have that thing on and out in the cold. Major fail on the battery. They say there's a low temperature battery coming, but start with the low temperature battery. Now, the accessories for these things are kind of cool. I got the snow bundle, and this is a little chest mount, and it goes on there. It's kind of cool. But the problem is, once again, a lot of the accessories you can't even get. I've been waiting on a case for this thing because this is not waterproof, it's not shatterproof. So right now I'm freeballing it out in the woods, and if this thing hits a tree, these lenses, you can't replace them. I'm out $400 if I scratch this lens, but right now I can't even buy a case for this thing. Next up is the display. Now, yes, I did say the display was a pro, and it is. I give them full kudos for putting a display on here. That's big. Problem is, look how small that display is. So if you have any near vision problems like me, you're never gonna read this. And then if it gets even in the ballpark of bright, if it's even the third neighbor down from bright, this thing just, you can't even read it. So it's a very difficult display. Kudos for putting it on there. Kudos for putting a menu within that display, but again, the menu is very difficult. The biggest problem is the first time you turn this thing on, it defaults to picture mode, not video mode. So a lot of people, myself included, are like, I gotta shoot some video, turn it on, quick, hit record, snap a picture. Now you're stuck. Also, whenever you go into the menus, there's no back button. So if you want to make a selection, you have to scroll down to it, make it, and then scroll down through all the other things to done, hit done, and then if you hit the wrong button again, you'll end up in a different menu and have to scroll all the way down that one. It gives me a headache. It makes me want to drink beer. Well, everything makes me want to drink beer. And we come back to the app for a con this time. I have heard good things about the app. I know a lot of you people, if you're just playing around with them, want to putz around with it, share some cool stuff on Instagram, and I hear the app is actually pretty good. There's a couple of problems that I've had. One is, I swear I looked on their website and they said it worked with an iPhone 6, so I bought it, and then all of a sudden was having problems, and I looked back on the website and it said 6S. So if you have a 6, you may end up with some crashing problems. It still does work, so I will give them some kudos on that. And again, I have heard some very good things about the functionality within the app, so I'll give the app a con. All right, so you got your footage shot, maybe you got a little bit of a headache, but you're on your way home, you're gonna mess around with some content. Good news is their workflow is actually pretty decent. They've got the Insta360 One X Beta Studio, I believe it's called, and you can just edit it right in there. You can even do some over capturing in there, some tiny planets. It's actually a pretty decent little piece of software, but I need to get mine into Premiere. So what I had to do was get it into Studio and then convert it into an MP4, which took a decent amount of time. Not a horrible amount of time, but a decent amount of time. But now Insta360 is saying that they've released an update where you can go basically straight from the camera onto your hard drive, and then you don't have to convert to an MP4. I tried it, and it crashed, and it crashed, and it crashed, and it crashed. Now I've got a 2013 Apple Pro Tower, one of the little garbage cans, so maybe it's a little outdated, but it shouldn't be crashing on me like that. Overall, the workflow, again, good. User experience, See, this is not the video I planned on making about this camera. I mean, this was the most excited over a camera purchase I've ever been. I mean, this is 360 degrees of shooting for 400 bucks. And I will say that if battery life doesn't matter, if the audio doesn't matter, things like that, you're just gonna putz around, make cool Instagram stuff, this is probably a decent camera for you. But if you're gonna push it at all, you're gonna get it into the cold, you're gonna need to have the audio sound good, you're gonna wanna wait at least 6 months before you buy this. I will say come back in 3 months and I can give you an update on that, but for now, I would not buy the Insta360 One X if I could go back in time. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you're rad, hit that bell button and you will be notified every time I make new content, which these days is almost every day, so stay tuned. We should talk a little bit about why you may actually want to buy this camera. See, I'm a